I wanted to tie in another argument that I frequently see people on the right making, and that's this idea that we don't affirm anorexic girls into their anorexia by giving them liposuction. So why would we affirm children in their confusion about their identity by allowing them to surgically remove perfectly healthy body parts? And I do appreciate that argument, and I think there are a lot of parallels, but I think a key component is missing, and that is the blatant societal influence that pushes girls to become anorexic in the first place. And you know how I know that's a thing? I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I remember in my teenage years where having stick-thin models was a thing. It was popular to have them on magazine covers and in ads and in commercials and on TV and in fashion shows. And that was kind of the standard of how designers wanted to present their brand and to present their clothing. And it was decided that having this kind of impact, showing girls that that this was the standard of beauty, it would be dangerous to them because they were so impressionable, especially young and teenage girls where they're already insecure about their bodies. They just want to be accepted. They don't want to stand out or feel uncomfortable. It would give them the idea that this stick-thin body type was what they needed to achieve to be accepted in society, and that it would influence girls to think, to have dysmorphic ideas. Is that a word? I think that's a word. Ideas about their bodies that weren't true, to think that they were fat when they're not, to think that they're unhealthy when they're not, and influence them not only in those, warped ideas about about their bodies and what they were seeing in the mirror, but to actually influence them to do harmful things to their body, regardless of the long-term repercussions and regardless of the threats to their health that it would pose. Because the main focus when you're a teenager and when you're a young kid is being accepted by your peers, is being accepted, is being praised, is being popular, is being trendy. Those are the things that teenagers think about. So the idea that they can't be influenced into doing things when they are the most influential people in our society is just completely insane to me. But at this time, I remember things changing quite a bit because I remember this whole conversation because it really was having the exact impact that we said it was having. We said that having all of these ads and the standard of beauty out there to be rail thin was going to have a negative effect on girls, and we saw it happening. And as a society, we generally agreed that needed to change so that girls could have confidence in themselves and that they could love who they were as they were and who they were, their unique shape and their unique body, and that they didn't have to achieve this societal expectation of beauty to be beautiful themselves. We universally acknowledged that the materials that kids and teens have access to can impact their mindset and can impact their confidence and can impact the decisions they make about their bodies and about their health. And it could influence them to do harm to themselves if they truly thought it would lead to more self and peer acceptance. Can you imagine if at the time when stick skinny models were a thing, if in our teens' classrooms that all they had were shelves and shelves of books of stories about skinny girls, or how much happier these girls were when they didn't eat, and that regardless of what they saw in the mirror, they couldn't truly accept themselves until they were like the frail and emaciated characters in the book. And that their sports teams were taken over by the unhealthiest of their peer groups, and the standard for winning was how skinny and slow they could be. You and I both know that if that were happening, that we would have an entire generation of starving, miserable, crippled teenagers incapable of focusing on anything but their weight and really not understanding how to develop beyond that and to focus on other things and to focus on other talents and skills and abilities, and realizing that their weight isn't their entire world, that it really shouldn't be something not only that they focus on a lot, but that they really shouldn't be thinking about all the time and obsessing about. So This is really not an issue of whether or not we'd be willing to affirm anorexic girls with liposuction, or by affirming kids who say they're trans by allowing them to do things like permanently altering their bodies with surgery. This is about the fact that we would never, I couldn't say never, because there's a lot of things that I thought we would never do that society seems to have accepted as normal. But I'm just going to say, I'm going to assume that we would never ever try to convince all kids that they were anorexic and then treat them all with liposuction and calorie deficient diets. We've actually gone in the opposite direction. We've got women on magazine covers who are obese. And the idea now is that obesity is healthy. And if you even point out the irrefutable health consequences of carrying extra weight on your body, you're actually attacked and accused of fat shaming. If you really sit down and think about it, it is absolutely wild how much of society today operates on the influence of perpetual messaging.